Hi, this is a foreigner in the Philippines. The last few days has been quite an experience because we had Christmas, of course. We spent Christmas Day in a way that I've never ever spent Christmas before, completely at the service of other people. And our Sunday, our Christmas Day was spent at the church the entire day. Probably the um, you saw the video of that, completely different from anything that I've experienced. And I was the duty driver. I'm already feeling like I could do with an entire day's sleep, but there you have it. Running around, picking up kids, picking up parents, dropping them at the church, taking them back again, going for the ice cream. The ice cream container, dispenser, whatever you would call it, was like something out of a 1930s movie, because it looked exactly the same. We picked it up and brought it back to the church full of ice cream, and we dispensed it with a little scoop, and everybody had a lot of fun. So that was quite an experience. But what I really wanted to talk about was that when we were there, we were approached, not for the first time, for the second or third time, by this young man, Michael, and he was telling us that he had diabetes. Well, there's no way that I can't tell whether someone has the condition that he has, and anyway, if he was hoping that we would be able to just help him easily from a pocket full of money, of course that really isn't the case for us. Our whole objective in setting up our channel was not to become saviors for people who are in need. That emerged later as a mission that would take hold, a kind of a, you know that expression, you create a monster and then the monster takes over. Well, that's kind of what happened with us. We didn't really intend that was going to happen. We had our goals that we had set, and we tried to raise the money on GoFundMe. You can still go to GoFundMe and see what we said we were going to do. We wanted to build a road, we wanted to build a bridge, and we wanted to have a child. Well, we built the bridge and we built the road. The road still needs an awful lot of work doing to it before anybody would really seriously call it a road. At the moment it's just a dirt track that turns to mud whenever the rain falls. So that GoFundMe had really ceased to I don't think we'd taken a donation in GoFundMe for a long time. And what it did was it enabled us to start the work that has been obvious, but it didn't enable us to finish it. And we ended up deep in debt for the bridge and the road. Fortunately or unfortunately, we were able to finish the work, but as I said, we ended up deep in debt. Well, we've been paying off that debt gradually, from one pension or another, and we pay off every month, and gradually over the months it's now down to almost the last payment that we'll make, so no complaints on that. So what we did was we used the GoFundMe that is existing to take in funds for helping Nisa, and that brings us to the drama that we've been having with Nisa. See, the problem is in the Philippines is that you have old traditional ways of dealing with things. If you're a foreigner and you're coming over here and you think that, well, I'm enlightened and I can just help them to change this, that's not going to happen. The only way that I've been able to help in a modest kind of way is by coming over and accepting things the way they are. It occurred to me even just a few days ago that the things that I try to change by just talking, they don't mean a thing. They don't change anything, because this is a way of life that I've come into. This is not something that you can just say, oh, by the way, we don't do that anymore. We do it this way because that's how they do it in the West, and of course they're so enlightened in the West that they know how to do everything. Well, the truth is they don't know how to do everything. The truth is they are in the pursuit, what's the American way, the pursuit of happiness. Well, is that happening? I don't think so. That's why people have fled from the US and fled from Britain. A man actually messaged me, a friend, a subscriber, and said, I just cannot wait to leave this place. I'm just tired, 22 years of being a plumber, and he said, I just long for a simpler way of life that's not over-regulated. So people are trying to get away from that. And then they're going to come full tilt into the way of life here. The way of life here has its limitations, and you better be ready for that, because the only way that you can affect a change is by changing yourself. And this is an old theme of mine, that I've realized that that's what you have to do. First of all, you have to change. First of all, you have to understand how things are. I used to love the old Star Trek movies, and the Star Trek series. And what was the theme of that? To boldly go where no man has gone before. And their rule was that as they went, as superior beings, of course, because that was Earth television, they would be superior to anything that was going on. Of course, they were not superior, but that was the theme of the TV program, and they were not to interfere with the way that things were wherever they visited. So a lot of the time they were able to do it invisibly, and nobody knew they were there, and so they didn't interfere with the way that things were being done. And I think that that's a good theme for here, if you're coming here, is to think in terms of it wasn't going so great where you came from, and that's the reason that you're here, is because it wasn't going so great. Did they have everything worked out? I don't think that they did have everything worked out. Some things were great, let's face it. Some things where you can go and if one ATM doesn't work, then there's always another. You can go to the bank and you can get things done fairly quickly. You can go and register your car, and people will be I always found that people were charming to me when in Fort Myers. I didn't like the money I had to pay, but everybody was very friendly, treated me very, very well, very nice. And I found that generally people were nice. That's what I found. It was a regulation on a governmental level that I didn't like. Plus, and it's a very small thing, of course, I couldn't afford to live. So I moved out of the warehouse that I was living in, and I squatted in a house that was in foreclosure, as many other houses were, and the people in this little community around were quite happy to have me and my roommate take care of the house and not let it go into being a ruin and a ghost house. So we stayed there, and we were there quite happily, paying no rent for 2 years. And then finally I decided that this wasn't the way that I wanted to live my life, and I came out to the Philippines. I didn't really intend to stay in the Philippines. Came to visit my son, who was here, and I stayed for. It was easy for me to come out here, even though I only had a couple of $1,000. And then I realized, well, he actually has his own life, and so I moved into a place of my own, and was able to do that because the money that I get on my very modest pensions in the US was enough for me to live here. So how do we get to this, what seemed like it was going to be an impasse with this young woman who we're trying to help? What is happening is that on one side you have people telling her, well, you know, can they really help you to do that? Wouldn't you be better to just continue your crippled life and live? Against all of that logic, that kind of logic, it's logical to them, is the logic of the surgeon. And when we went to see the surgeon with Nisa, I said to him, what are they? I had two main questions, apart from the cost. I had two main questions. What's the risk of something going wrong? It's the spinal column, and if anything happens with the spine, then paralysis. I said, what's the chances? What are the percentages? Give me the figures. And he said, 99% success rate. So 1% of something going wrong and being paralyzed in both legs. Well, I probably have less than a 99% chance of walking down from here to my truck in the mud and slipping on my rear end. And doing some damage as well at my age. I might break an arm or a hip or something. So that seemed like pretty good. That seemed like a pretty good chance to me. Now, the next question. What if she doesn't do anything? And the answer to that is she'll die. This is a very, very sobering thing to hear, even when it's somebody else that you've become aware of and become friendly with and become to care about. It's very sobering. So when all of this pressure began to build on Nisa of don't do it, we don't want you to do it, it might be dangerous, it might not work, had to go around, and maybe you have already seen the video of how we managed to talk her into doing what will save her life. And maybe up to that point she hadn't realized that I was begging her for her life. Now here's the irony of when you start to help people, as we've been trying to help people. On one side you have people like Nisa who hasn't really grasped the enormity of what is happening to her. Then you have that boy, Michael. And Michael came to us and asked us, can you help me? And he was aware that he was diabetic, but he wasn't aware of just how severe that diabetes is. So we took him, we decided that, well, we can afford to take him just for a doctor's appointment. That was my reasoning. So, well, look, we can afford to pay for a doctor's appointment, and maybe we'll get a prescription, and then we'll see whether we can find the money to pay for that. Because my mother-in-law suffers from high blood pressure, and she has to have continuing medication, and it costs us every month. And so that's a thing. It's an expense that has to be met. So we thought that maybe this is what would happen with Michael, and then we might just have to find something to help him through that. Well, we went to the doctor, and the doctor just couldn't understand how Michael didn't know that he has type 1 diabetes. He took a test in his blood, and when he took the test he was over 600. Now that's the count that they have, some way of measuring the blood sugar count was over 600. And the thing about diabetes is if it goes unchecked, you go unconscious, you go into convulsions, and you die. So going from starting off our simple little YouTube channel where we thought we could maybe earn a little money and do fun videos where we talk and we chat and we show everyday life, suddenly we're not really showing everyday life, or are we? Maybe we are showing everyday life in the Philippines, and this boy is going to die if he doesn't get simple medication, just simple medication. So we told the doctor, well, in passing, this is what we're doing. We're just trying to help people, that's all. And as soon as we said that, he said, oh, thank you for doing that. And let's see if we can just avoid having to hospitalize him, which you don't have the money for, as we told him. And we'll see what we can do. Kind of reminded me of the old MASH movies, where they're making do all the time and doing life and death surgery in tents. Kind of reminded me of that, because there's a tiny little clinic with no facilities at all. The little surgery that we were shown into for the doctor was maybe a little bit bigger than our bathroom, and our bathroom is like 5 foot by 4. So what we did was, he said he needs food and he needs water. So we took him out into the little waiting area. He sat there, we went out, we got some food, we got some water, we came back, we seated him in this little area, and he ate his food. Not too much, said the doctor, and he drank just over a litre of water. And the doc brought him back in, and he had this special little injection. It looked like a fountain pen to me, and he showed him how to give an injection into his stomach. Really nasty in my mind, but anyway, it wasn't one of those great long needles. It's a little tiny thing, and didn't seem to hurt him at all. So now we're going to take him back on Friday, and chances are we're going to be able to help him, because somebody donated $100 and said, use it how you want. Whatever you think is the best way to use this, that's what I want you to do. And let me ask Beth, I was going to say, who it was that sent that money, because we really want to acknowledge him. Your $100, and you'll know who you are, came in just amazingly. The timing was amazing. It could have been brought in on the wings of an angel. So we're able to help that boy. And our channel has kind of changed. It's not just about ordinary life. It's about some of the extraordinary life that you see here in the Philippines. How people are still able to have fun. Now, just to remember a little about our Sunday and Christmas. Boy, there were no great presents. People didn't open box after box after box. Children didn't have tons of presents. There were no video games. Nobody was exercising their thumb. They played social games, not ones where you focus on a little electronic device that fits into the palm of your hand. They played games in which they laughed together. Now, think about how life is now going for all of the Western civilizations, and it's not all going great. Remember what Mahatma Gandhi was asked when he went to visit London, and he arrived there dressed in a bedsheet, and somebody said, one of the reporters said, "What do you think of civilization, Mr. Gandhi?" And he said, "I think it would be a very good thing." So this is a foreigner in the Philippines. I've just been rambling. It's not about any one given subject, unless you call life and death not a one subject. So let's try to live out there. Let's try to give a little. every day give a little.